Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbadger.com, out here for another review, and today I'm talking about some pretty cool offerings by Laser Ammo. We'll go ahead, take a step back, start with the what. So Laser Ammo, company that makes some pretty awesome training solutions for firearms training, and kind of two different sides to it. On the one hand, you have the Smokeless Range, and then you also have kind of their interactive training arena. So we'll go ahead and start initially with the Smokeless Range. So the Smokeless Range, exactly what it sounds like. Basically a range where you can shoot lasers without smoke and basically effectively train. So I actually had the good fortune of James coming out, and he's the director of military sales and training, retired Army, did a ton of stuff with like their essentially marksmanship program and stuff like that over there. And really cool being able to see that happen. Essentially, we converted my garage and set it up as a range. So had a big screen set up, got a short throw projector set up, and was basically able to do all kinds of different training. And the way it is set up is you essentially have some sort of laser equipped gun, whether it's a pistol like this or a carbine, whatever it may be. They offer also to that end kind of most common stuff. So think like Glocks or again, military application, M17, M18 pistols, or competition side like 2011s. And yeah, pretty cool. You get a little bit of a recoil impulse, fires a laser. And then same with the AR side, or I think they also have maybe a 416, a couple other kind of like carbine setups. And they're mil specs, so you can actually set them up, rails, whatever, how your gun is set up. And it allows you to train. And so with that, there's tons of different options within the software that is there. They have some stuff that's honestly just like a lot of fun, like it's pretty much games. And then they also have stuff that is absolutely dedicated towards kind of like competition style shooting, where you can actually have all kinds of different stages. And then there's also like the military side. So they actually have the military qualification in there, which allows people to basically go through, get familiar with manipulation, moving, all sorts of different shooting positions before they go out and actually shoot live fire on the range. Huge cost savings there, not to mention like the safety side of it, getting people base level proficiency. And then on top of that, actual kind of like video side of it. So basically scenario driven stuff where you end up going, or you're basically static, but the scenario plays through and you're presented with things, and hopefully you end up making the right choice. And with that, there's stuff that shoot as well as no shoot, so you don't go in there and just bam, 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 like everyone gets shot. But then on some of the shoot stuff, it's quick. So like, again, going back to especially law enforcement, like you got to make a decision really quick. And if you're too slow, then you lose. Fortunately in this, you get to restart the scenario versus in real life, but massive training aid. One thing that is really nice about that system too is really easy to calibrate. Basically the parameters of the video on the screen, and then of course actually zeroing your guns. So if you haven't taken the time to zero them, which they're pretty cool. So by way of example, this essentially was basically a modified airsoft pistol. And you can do all this stuff, manipulations like a regular Glock, but then up front here, they have their laser unit, which is threaded inside of this barrel. And on the back here, you can replace the batteries, put it in there, but it essentially threads in. One thing I will say about this, which depending on the type of holster you run, i.e. if you run like a Safariland, something where the actual muzzle is covered up, you may need to figure something out because it protrudes a little bit. You can of course use other like laser pistols or laser barrels and stuff like that, whether it's like a SIRT gun or something like that. But with this, it does stick out a little bit. What's really nice though is you have all these little set screws around it, so you can actually basically zero this. And they have visible as well as IR models. Personally, I like the IR because when you pull the trigger, you don't end up seeing where that was. Like the computer will recognize it, or the sensors and all that stuff. But as far as you, it's really easy to get target focused if you're looking for where your laser's hitting versus just shooting and hopefully you're looking at your sights and it's an IR laser. But pretty cool setup and being able to just work through these different scenarios. Oh yeah, and since I got totally sidetracked on their laser guns and basically how you can actually zero them, which is awesome. If you're using some sort of other laser gun device that you can't zero, it's really handy. Basically, they'll bring up a target on the screen and you'll shoot a number of shots and aiming dead center of that target. And it'll say, cool, if all those were dead center, all your rounds were like low left, like 2 inches or something like that. And it recognizes that. And so then basically every time it registers a hit, it moves it up and right 2 inches. So it effectively zeroes your gun even if your laser isn't zeroed, which is really nice, especially just on the confidence side. Like, man, I feel like I was on target. And that basically lets you true out your laser gun, pistol, or rifle, which is really cool. And among other things, as far as like just straight up training value for you, regardless of where you are on the spectrum, it allows the introduction of firearms to maybe people that are new shooters, kids, things like that, in a safe and quiet environment, not to be confused with the indoor range. And yeah, it's pretty cool. My boys definitely had a lot of fun shooting through some of the different kind of scenarios or games on there. One of the coolest things, honestly, about the Smokeless Range is flexibility on the software side. You can create pretty much any environment, any type of targets, whatever you want. By way of example, we initially took some photos of me and my boys to create some shoot, no shoot targets. With that, basically being able to modify them too. So, hey, we're gonna make a target and maybe this target's wearing body armor. Or maybe they're wearing body armor, only part of them is exposed, whatever it may be. And so then once you do that, you can basically take your image for your target and go in and create hit zones. So certain things like maybe the plate is 0. Like you can shoot it over and over, but you're not going to get the desired effect because guy's wearing like level 4 plates. Conversely, you can make it to where you have like an eye box and the target will immediately get neutralized if it's shot in the eye box. And if it gets shot somewhere else, maybe it takes 2 or 3 rounds. And so you can adjust all of those different parameters and basically map out exactly what different zones are essentially or effectively scored with respect to the system, so that it takes 1 round to knock this down, maybe it takes 3 rounds over in this area, whatever it may be. And then with that, you can populate basically your own scenario, taking whatever images you want, throw them in there, create your own backdrops, pictures of your home range, whatever it may be. Really, really amazing the flexibility the system has. And well, that was largely kind of the summation of the Smokeless Range. They have, again, a whole other side to it. This right here, which is their interactive multi-target training system. This side of it is comprised with basically a control unit as well as a number of wireless targets. And it can be used pretty much anywhere, which is really cool. So inside our box here, we have our little user guide. We have a number of different targets, and we have both our control unit as well as these individual target units. And so these can be used a number of different ways, to include with these targets here. And you have a number of different ones, 3-inch circle, 6-inch circle, silhouette, some competition style stuff, and basically put these guys in here and then turn these units on. And then depending on what you want to do, you also have this control unit which links all of these different target units together, and some pretty cool functions within that too. These individual target units are pretty cool. You can use them standalone or in conjunction with other ones to include with a control unit. So the way it works, basically, you fire a laser, vis or IR, hits it, it registers it basically off that reflective surface, and then whatever it's set up for, it does that. By way of example, some different modes you can set it to. So if you hit it, auditory beep, and it'll reset itself, or you can have it, you need to hit it twice before it'll reset itself, different things like that. But with the control unit, that's where honestly some of the really cool stuff comes in. With this control unit, it allows for a lot of really cool stuff. On the one hand, turn on all your different target units, it'll pair with up to 10 of them, and they're all controlled by this. And then within there, you have a number of different kind of like settings where you can shoot. One of which basically kind of steel challenge, where you shoot it, it'll flash a color and turn off, and you basically shoot through all the different ones like you would steel. And then you also have a chase the ball, which depending on where your targets are arrayed, basically one will light up green, you engage it, another one at random will light up, and you basically shoot through all the different targets, basically having to acquire different targets as they randomly light up after you've previously engaged the one that was lit. Then they also have a basically kind of a shoot no shoot. So they will have no shoots light up and then shoots light up at random across however many targets, up to 10, which that one, it's pretty cool. Again, looking through target discrimination, but then they also have like a second version of that, which is basically half the time, which goes really fast. So depending on how far apart or in depth or whatever your different targets are, that one can be really hard. And then they also have it set up to where basically go through every target needs to be engaged twice, and then it'll basically black out, and you have to shoot all the targets that are connected to this before it'll eventually reset. And then I think they have one other setting, which is basically, it's kind of a speed setting as far as you can, actually a lot of them will record it, but basically kind of that last setting is, think of it as a shot timer. And you can go through and work on whatever you want. It's going to give you your splits, shot to shot, things like that. With that said, how have I used this setup? Well, I have done some shooting in my house, basically with those little target backers, which is pretty cool, especially using that small, like 3-inch circle at distance. You can't just like blast, like again, front sight squeeze, get that shot. But honestly, some of the coolest training I've done with this is shoot house runs. So fortunately, up here in North Idaho, right across the border, friends over there have the Direct Action Center. Basically, it is a fully kind of customizable indoor shoot house where they do UTMs, sims. They also do a bunch of other training there, a lot of basically force on force stuff there. And with it, it's a giant shoot house. So I've been through there before doing dry runs, practice like that, to include night vision stuff. But being able to take these through there was really cool. In that one, they have a bunch of props to include a vehicle and different levels, 2-story building, and being able to go through and basically set it up and do a bunch of runs. And some of the flexibility with these is also pretty neat in that, depending on how you want to have them set up, right here is some male Velcro. So you can put corresponding male Velcro to, say, IPSC target. And it's pretty reflective, especially off of like a pretty small area. So what we do is basically set these up on IPSC targets, like directly to them. So largely it would be headshots because they're out away from walls. So even if you hit the wall with the laser, the splash will not set this off. And then depending on how you want to do it also, you can even basically put these on the back side of your target and then cut out a small hole in your target. Think maybe credit card box, iBox, and put this behind it. So the laser has to actually go through whatever sized hole you put in your cardboard. Again, basically rewarding good shot placement to actually get your hit. But with a number of different guns and a bunch of targets, got to do a bunch of really good runs through the shoot house. And taking full advantage of some of the props there, direct action center to include their vehicle, being able to work through some of those different settings as far as like chase the ball or shoot no shoot with all kinds of different targets at depth. And yeah, awesome opportunity for training without blowing through a bunch of ammo. With those standalone units, honestly, kind of sky's the limit. It was really cool to be able to go there to the direct action center because they basically have everything set up as far as a full-blown shoot house, which they change all the time, and they're always offering different classes and stuff, which, as an aside, just cool place, good training, stuff like that. But those standalone units, you can obviously just use in your house too. And it's one of those where, yeah, getting some good reps, going through angles, clearing the structure you live in with stuff that's not going to wreck your house. By way of example, if you want to shoot airsoft in your house, like, you're going to probably end up with a lot of broken stuff. Live fire in your house, I would encourage you not to, even if you have bullet traps. This allows you to basically set up a range anywhere, to include in your house, and get a lot of really good reps and not burn through ammo or break things in your house, which is pretty cool. What are my thoughts overall on laser ammo and kind of the two different sights, Smokeless Range as well as their multi-target system? I think it's really cool, and I think it offers a lot of value. It's one of those where, hey, I want to go to the range. Yeah, I want to go to the range every day. And sometimes that just doesn't work because there's a serious logistical side of just getting there, depending on how far the range is. And then there's absolutely a cost associated with it. And dry fire, I think, is great. I also think it can often be very boring. And I think this is, on the one hand, just one more tool, but also a pretty awesome step up from dry fire that is pretty much as close as you're going to get to actual live fire. And I think there's a ton of value with that on both different sides too. Obviously the multi-target system, that's pretty cool because you can just shoot in your house, set up whatever you want, little course of fire, those little targets all over the place, go through your house as quick as you can, clear it, whatever you want to do like that. which is really valuable, I think. On the other hand, the Smokeless Range, I'm probably not going to have that set up in my house, even though my boys would love it. But I think stuff like that, honestly, the real value is law enforcement, military, even like gun ranges and stuff like that. On the one hand, especially I'll speak to law enforcement, the amount of firearms training law enforcement gets it's laughable. Like, it's terrible. And again, going back to those logistics, getting people to go to the range. I remember the department I worked at, we actually had a range, like indoor range down below, which was kind of handy, but again, you're still stuck just like at this indoor range down in basically a basement, versus being able to go to a range where you can actually do more dynamic stuff. And you can do whatever you want with this stuff, like however you have it set up, barricades, whatever you want to do, right there with basically lasers. And I think also being able to go through scenarios, hugely valuable. And then on the military side, honestly, most units don't get the allocation of ammo. They probably should, even like line companies, infantry units. And then there's the logistics of getting to wherever. So being able to have stuff like this, or even just in a team room where you can go through, work on stuff, I think there's a huge amount of value to that. And I mentioned indoor ranges. You're like, why would you have the smokeless range at an indoor range? The first place you want people to have their shooting experience is not at an indoor range. That is a terrible place. Super loud, concussive. So for no other reason than to be able to stair-step new shooters into it so they can go through, get that little bit of a recoil impulse, work all those different manipulations, everything like that. See they can handle stuff safely before they go over and get their eardrums blown out, because I hate indoor ranges. But I think it's a valuable tool there as well. And of course, if you want to have it set up in your home, do it. It would be rad. Be able to have that basically set up all the time in your house, go shoot through stuff, especially on the competition side, being able to create stages for like big matches, go shoot through it if that's your thing, or basically shoot through scenarios and stuff. I think there's value across the board. So cost-wise, what does it come down to? Well, it pretty much scales across all of that stuff. On the one hand, you have the smokeless range and software and everything like that, over I think around like $1,500 to about $4,000. And then you also have standalone stuff, which totally scales again depending on the different units and the guns you have, all of that stuff. But there'll be links down below where you can go check out all of it. Overall, I definitely think it is a really valuable tool, especially this day and age where, honestly, myself, I definitely don't get to shoot as much as I would like, and dry fire at a certain point, while it's valuable, it gets boring, and I think this is a pretty awesome kind of intermediary step between dry fire and live fire. And lots of value, pretty low cost once you made that initial investment. But as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.